This is our project, The Telescopes of Galileo by Bryn Babyck and Andrew Ouro-Rodrigues.
The scientific revolution was a period of time in the 16th and 17th centuries in Europe that involved the emergence of modern science. There was also a drastic change in how society viewed nature as a result of the new advances made in physics, astronomy, mathematics, chemistry, and biology. For a very long time, people believed in an earth-centered universe, as well as the clear division between the earthly realm and the heavenly realm. They believed that everything in the celestial realm was perfect, governed by its own scientific laws, and that every celestial body was made from the divine ether and orbited the earth. In contrast, they also believed that everything in the earthly realm was flawed and made from the elements fire, water, earth, and air. The people of this time period believed so strongly in this idea because it was strongly advocated for by the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church pushed for the belief of this division and distinction between the celestial and earthly realms because it reinforced their doctrinal idea that the universe had been created for humanity and that trying to attain salvation was the whole purpose of life. When the ideas of revolutionary scientists, such as those of Galileo, Kepler, and Newton, began to spread, and people could see the scientific evidence behind their ideas, society's view of nature began to drastically change. Eventually, people began to understand that it was actually the sun that is the center of the universe. Furthermore, thinkers began using the scientific method to increase their knowledge. This new outlook on science and nature caused society to get rid of the medieval outlook on science. People began to have much more confidence in the human mind, realizing how powerful and significant it was. This new outlook also fostered skepticism in Christian beliefs and doctrine, such as the idea of miracles, and people ended up pulling further and further away from the Catholic Church.
One of the most important minds of this new era was Galileo Galilei, a philosopher, mathematician, and astronomer from what is now modern-day Italy. After the intellectual boom of the Renaissance came the scientific revolution of early modern Europe, and along with the creation of the scientific method and the increasing importance of empirical evidence. One of the people who best encompasses the ideas of this time period is Galileo Galilei. Some of his most important discoveries including work on the formation of inertia, the laws of falling bodies and parabolic trajectories, and the laws of motion. He also focused heavily on astronomy, and his discoveries with a telescope revolutionized astronomical principles and paved the way for a shift in mentality across Europe.
We chose to do our material culture project on Galileo's telescope. Though Galileo was not the first person to design a telescope, his was significant because of the celestial observations he made and published, which allowed society to revolutionize their understanding of the cosmos and humanity's place within it. Galileo first engineered his telescope in 1609 in a show of ingenuity and initiative. Galileo's telescope was a prototype of our modern-day refractor telescope. He used a convex objective lens and a concave eye lens. Just to give you some perspective, our telescopes today use two convex lenses instead. Galileo used the knowledge that if he placed an object at a distance from a convex lens, the light from the object would create an identical image on the opposite side of the lens. He also used the knowledge that the image of the object would appear on the same side of the lens where the object was located if he used a concave lens. He also knew how to get the image to appear much larger than the object looked to the human eye, and continued experimenting to increase the magnification of his telescope for many years. He worked hard to work out the details of it through a system of trial and error. It took a long time, but eventually he had a finished product, a very powerful and accurate telescope that made a name in history. The majority of telescopes in Galileo's time were made and used to observe things of the earth. Galileo, however, directed his own telescope to the heavens. It had a narrow field of view, but managed to significantly magnify his normal view, allowing him to see into the sky. He discovered many incredible things, such as mountains and even craters on the moon's rough and uneven surface. He also observed 4 of Jupiter's largest moons, all orbiting Jupiter, as well as the phases of Venus and spots on the sun's surface. He sketched out his observations and published his findings in a piece that he titled The Starry Messenger. These new observations of the heavens made by Galileo and others completely revolutionized societal thought on astronomy, religion, science, and nature. Here are some quotes that demonstrate the importance of Galileo's telescope and the impact it had on Europe at this time.
So, how do Galileo's telescopes connect with what we have been learning in class? For this assignment, Bryn and I wanted to find a material culture object that we really thought encompassed the spirit of the scientific revolution, and we found that the telescopes of Galileo really showed what made the scientific revolution so important and so effective in the long run. This time period is now not simply focused on finding interesting theories, but focused on being able to show if those theories were correct or not. During this time period, the influence of the Church was still great and powerful, extremely fundamentalist and against challenging their notions of right and wrong. He used his telescopes to actively challenge the Catholic Church's notions that the Earth was the center of the universe and that everything else revolved around it. Using his telescope, he discovered many important things about the universe, like the moon is not a perfect sphere, the sun's rotation, and that Jupiter has moons of its own that revolve around it. This challenged the perceived notions of the Church and landed Galileo in hot water with them. In a document from our textbook called Galileo Condemned by the Inquisition, it demonstrates the early reaction to Galileo's scientific discoveries by the Church, which were overwhelmingly negative and considered to be heresy. Galileo's telescope symbolizes the thirst for knowledge during this time period and its rebellion against established norms of the Church and state. Thank you so much for listening to our presentation.